white sugar, white flour, white rice, white potatoes. The things that are good for you, you should eat fiber, drink plenty of water, and also indulge yourself in an anti-inflammatory diet, which I've given out probably every talk we've done since we've been doing this series. And in your packet of information, there is actually a copy of the anti-inflammatory diet. So, again, most of you that have been here before already have this. The foods at the top of this diet are good. They're anti-inflammatory foods. The foods at the bottom of this list can be and are potentially inflammatory. And inflammation, as we've talked about before, affects our entire body. But most brain problems, diagnosed brain problems, when CAT scans are done, PET scans are done, it's found the brain is inflamed. So if you can reduce the inflammation you're putting in your body, you can reduce the inflammatory impact on your brain. And that leads us right into controlling inflammation. Brain inflammation is linked to most brain dysfunction. Diabetes is an inflammatory process. Cardiovascular disease or heart disease is an inflammation or inflammatory process. Allergies, asthma, immune system problems, gastrointestinal disorders, joint diseases, all are a result of inflammation. And the more we can keep our body deflamed, the healthier we're going to be, and consequently the healthier our brain's going to be. Now, inflammation is not always bad, but inflammation shouldn't be an ongoing chronic thing. You shouldn't constantly and chronically be inflamed. It's the chronic inflammation that's bad. Acute inflammation isn't. It's the way the body helps heal itself. So, again, we must treat the cause of inflammation if we're truly going to do some things to help improve brain function. Digestion is important. Obviously, many experts believe there are two nervous systems. This is a relatively new concept over the past maybe 6 or 8 months that I've seen in the medical literature, that actually we have our brain, but there's a brain that governs our gut. And these two brains have to work together and coordinate and work together to function normally. So it's important to have good gut function. And typically patients that we see, whether they have adrenal fatigue problems, they have memory problems, they have Alzheimer's problems, they typically also have digestive problems. And digestion starts in the mouth. As food travels out of the mouth, it goes into the stomach. And our stomach is like a big muscular bag. And it produces something called hydrochloric acid. It produces enzymes. Your pancreas produces enzymes to help break this food down, to prepare it to go into the small intestine so your body can absorb the nutrients in the small intestine, so you can absorb those nutrients, and then any of the waste products go into the large intestine so you can get rid of them, through a bowel movement. The other interesting thing that a lot of people don't know, and maybe even in medical science only the past 10 years or so, that many of the neurotransmitters that control brain function are actually produced in your large intestine. Neurotransmitters are are substances that actually let brain neurons, the nerves in your brain, communicate one with the other. They create certain reactions in neurons. So, for example, patients that typically are depressed, they may take serotonin, they may take Prozac. What Prozac does, it keeps serotonin in those nerve synapses longer, so it gives you a feeling of well-being, or makes you feel good, or makes you feel better. I bet you. So anyway, neurotransmitters. So if you don't have a healthy large intestine, you're not going to make enough neurotransmitters for your brain. So, to really get your brain functioning better, you actually really need to make sure you've got good intestinal function. Because again, a lot of neurotransmitters are made in the large intestine. And here's another interesting point. 65% of all your lymphatic tissue, your immune fighting tissue, is in your large intestine as well. So again, it's important to have a healthy, well-functioning large intestine. And again, a lot of times with our patients, when we do our initial evaluation, we'll address the areas of digestion before we do anything else. Or we may detoxify the patients, which we'll talk about here in just a second, because they have a toxic liver that affects how their body can break down waste products and eliminate waste products. And just as a little side note, if you're bloated, have acid reflux or heartburn, you could have a problem in your stomach, which ultimately can affect how your small intestine and how your large intestine function and how they work. So anyway, boosting energy, it's another important factor in terms of a healthy functioning brain. We said before, we need glucose, we need oxygen. That's your body's fuel, but it's also fuel for the brain. Your brain also uses more energy than any other body organ, which is interesting. So you want to make sure you've got plenty of energy on hand for that to happen. Mitochondria are centers in the cells that make energy. If you remember from 8th grade science class, our body's made up of billions and billions of little cells. And inside inside the cells are these little structures called mitochondria. They used to be called the powerhouse of the cell. But they're little energy factories. And it's important for those energy factories, whether they're in your brain or your heart or your lungs or your liver, to make enough energy so your body can function normally. So mitochondria are important. So if you don't have energy, you're going to have decreased cell function and ultimately have cell death. Cell dysfunction, cell death equals this: chronic illness and broken brains. Now there are 4 nutritional supplements. I call them the 4 musketeers. And we've talked about those in previous talks. That really help stimulate energy production at a cellular level. One of those is coenzyme Q10. CoQ10, if you think of a cell as the motor in your car, okay? The motor in your car, of course, has a motor. It's got a carburetor. It needs gas to run, and it needs oil to lubricate. Well, CoQ10 at a cellular level acts like the carburetor in the car. It helps the cells run more efficiently in your body. So CoQ10 is extremely important. CoQ10 also, if you're taking statin medications or statin drugs, cholesterol-lowering drugs, you have to supplement yourself with CoQ10. Because CoQ10 is made in the liver, and statin drugs do block the normal production of CoQ10. In Europe, in Canada, every prescription bottle that has a statin drug, has a warning, or at least a recommendation, that you supplement your diet with CoQ10, or else your cells aren't going to function properly. And we talked about heart health 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the fact that, statin drugs, cholesterol-lowering medications, are to some degree reducing the risk of heart attack and the numbers of heart attack. But the increase in number of heart failures has skyrocketed, since the use of statin drugs. And I would propose, and I think medical literature would support this, is that probably CoQ10 deficiency is part of the reason for that. If your body doesn't have CoQ10 at a cellular level, cells don't work. Cells don't work, cells die. L-carnitine, is another. It's an amino acid that helps with cell function. It acts like the lubricant. It makes that engine run more smoothly, but again, more efficiently. D-ribose is a 5-carbon sugar, again, produced by our body, but as we get older, our bodies produce less and less and less D-ribose. D-ribose is like gasoline for the car. It makes the gasoline work as it should. And magnesium, and we use D-ribose with, it's called Corvalin, with magnesium in it. But magnesium is kind of like the catalyst. It's like the spark from the spark plugs that make it all run and churn properly. So, I guess if you didn't do anything else for your heart or for cell function or even brain function, these are certainly 4 supplements that certainly help with all those areas. Detoxification. You got to have a healthy liver to have a healthy brain. You have to have a healthy liver to have a healthy anything in your body. Our liver, is like a big garbage can. It filters everything that we breathe. It filters everything that we eat. But everything that we ingest, whether it's through breath or through food, has to go through the liver. It goes through a 2-part process of detoxification. It's almost like we got 2 garbage cans in our body. Phase 1 detox is one garbage can. Phase 2 detox is the other garbage can. And what happens with the body, if the detoxification process is working as it should, these food nutrients that we ingest go into phase 1 detox, then into phase 2, where it's broken down into a water-soluble form, so your body can excrete them through your kidneys or through your large intestine. But if you have a fatty liver because you've been exposed to toxins, or if you are getting older, you may have a fatty degenerative liver. As we just typically get older, and as we're exposed to more and more toxins in our environment, our livers become more and more toxic. Mercury, lead, PCB, dioxins, all contribute to an unhealthy brain because they affect the liver and cause an unhealthy liver. Toxins cause inflammation as well. So I guess that's a given. So what do we do to fix our brain? Well, as I said, we've got to first fix our body. First step is diet. And with diet, as I said, the